How dare a cleaning lady like you ruin a CEO's wife's dress? Get on your knees and beg right now." In the middle of the grand ballroom, her mother-in-law's cheek swelled, turning a shade of red deeper than the $1,000 Bordeaux that had been spilled. Just as the woman raised her hand again towards the trembling, humiliated older woman, a voice cut through the air. "The moment you lower that hand, your wrist will be broken." The nouveau riche socialite, who believed money could buy the right to strike another person, could never have imagined it. She had no idea that tucked away in the purse of the daughter-in-law she'd just dismissed was the identification of the most powerful prosecutor in New York, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District. On that day, the glamorous party transformed in an instant into a hellscape of screams and sobs. Just how severe was the price for slapping her mother-in-law's face? The lobby of the Grand Astoria Hotel on Park Avenue shimmered under brilliant chandeliers, a world unto itself. Polished marble floors gleamed like mirrors, reflecting the elegantly dressed people hurrying past. Into this scene of opulence, a worn-out pickup truck glided to a stop at the curb. The passenger door creaked open, and today's protagonist, Martha Peterson, stepped out cautiously. She smoothed down the lapels of her favorite gray coat, but the fabric, worn by time, seemed shabby and out of place here. Her son, Leo, got out from the driver's side, a reassuring smile on his face as he came around and wrapped an arm around his mother's shoulders. He slipped something into her coat pocket. "Mom, this isn't just a pen, it's a recorder. Make sure you keep it on you. If anyone at the reunion gives you a hard time or says anything nasty, don't hesitate. Just press this button, okay?" Martha squeezed her son's hand. "Oh, you think of everything. It's just dinner with old friends. What could possibly happen? Don't worry about me. Go on to work. And tell Claire thank you for me." Leo looked at her with concern, adjusting her collar. "Claire said to hold your head high and have a good time. And call immediately if anything happens. I've gotta go." Martha watched her son's truck disappear into the city traffic, then took a deep breath and pushed through the revolving doors. But the moment she entered the ballroom, her shoulders instinctively slumped. Her old high school classmates were all adorned with glittering diamond necklaces and designer handbags, busy complimenting one another's outfits. In this dazzling landscape, her old, sensible shoes felt glaringly inadequate. She tried to slip away to a corner table, hoping to go unnoticed. But it was too late. From the center of the room, a woman laughing boisterously with a circle of admirers spotted Martha with the eyes of a hawk. Her expression soured instantly. It was Tiffany Harding, draped head to toe in logo-emblazoned designer wear, with rings on her fingers so large they looked like brass knuckles. Her face was pulled unnaturally tight from countless cosmetic procedures. She strode over, her voice dripping with condescension. "Well, look what the cat dragged in. Is that you, Martha Peterson? I don't think I've heard you say a word since graduation. And that outfit, for a second, I thought one of the hotel maids had sat down at our table by mistake." The women around Tiffany tittered in agreement. Martha's face burned with humiliation. She wished the floor would swallow her whole. As she tried to stand up, Tiffany pushed her firmly back into her seat. Tiffany flicked the collar of Martha's coat with a manicured finger. "My God, is this vintage or just old? Look at the pilling. I heard you started working as a cleaning lady after your husband passed. It must be true. Did you even have the money for the reunion ticket? If not, I can cover it for you." Martha's voice trembled as she ducked her head. "That's a cruel thing to say, Tiffany. I paid my way, just like everyone else. I came because I wanted to see old friends. Please, don't be like this." Tiffany's perfectly sculpted eyebrows twitched at this mild protest. In her mind, she was the queen of this domain, and the idea of a mere cleaning lady talking back to her was insufferable. Just then, a waiter approached to refill Tiffany's glass with red wine. Eager to flaunt her wealth, she held the glass aloft, gesturing wildly as she laughed. "Oh, you simply won't believe the diamond my husband bought me on our trip to Europe. It was..." In that moment, her flailing elbow knocked the waiter's arm. The wine sloshed, cascading in a crimson waterfall down the front of Tiffany's pristine white dress. The ballroom fell silent. Tiffany looked down at the stain and let out a piercing shriek. "What have you done? My dress! My dress!" she screeched, trying to blot the stain. When the horrified waiter offered a napkin, she slapped his hand away, her eyes blazing. Then, looking for a target, her furious gaze landed on Martha, who was sitting right beside her. Though Martha had done nothing, she flinched back from the venom in Tiffany's stare. Tiffany pointed a trembling finger at her. "You, Martha Peterson, you did this on purpose, didn't you? You were jealous of me talking about my money, so you pushed him. Admit it." "No," Martha cried, holding up her hands. "I was just sitting here. You were the one waving your arms around." But Tiffany wasn't listening. Unwilling to admit her own clumsiness, she had decided to make Martha the scapegoat. The other classmates, intimidated by Tiffany, said nothing. Tiffany lunged forward, grabbing Martha by the collar. "Don't you lie to me. How dare a cleaning lady like you ruin a CEO's wife's dress? This is custom Italian couture. It's worth more than you'll make in a lifetime. Get on your knees and beg. You're going to pay for this." Tears of frustration welled in Martha's eyes. "Why should I beg? I didn't do anything wrong. Does having money give you the right to treat people like dirt? You're a horrible person, Tiffany." Enraged by the defiance, Tiffany lost control. She raised her right hand high and, in front of the entire reunion, swung it with all her might. Smack! The sharp, ugly sound echoed through the vast ballroom. Martha's head snapped to the side, and she crumpled to the floor. A livid red handprint was already forming on her cheek, and a trickle of blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. Shaking with shock and humiliation, she could only tremble. Still not satisfied, Tiffany raised her hand again. "You still don't get it, do you? You need to learn your place. I guess your parents never taught you any manners. One more should do the trick." As her palm flew towards Martha's face for a second time, the heavy ballroom doors burst open with a resounding bang. All eyes turned to the entrance. A young woman in a simple but sharp black pantsuit strode in. She wore no makeup, but her eyes burned with the cold fire of a predator. It was Claire Vance. Waiting in the lobby, she had heard the shouting and the unmistakable sound of her mother-in-law's cry, and had run in at once. Seeing Martha on the floor, clutching her cheek, and Tiffany looming over her with a raised hand, Claire's eyes blazed. Instead of rushing to her mother-in-law, Claire moved with terrifying speed, intercepting Tiffany. Before Tiffany even registered her presence, Claire's hand shot out like a viper, seizing her wrist. Without a hint of hesitation, she twisted it backward. "Ah! What the? Let go of me! You're breaking my arm!" Tiffany shrieked in pain. Claire ignored her cries, applying more pressure, and forcing Tiffany down to the floor. The pain was too much. Tiffany buckled, falling to her knees. The classmates watched, frozen, too shocked to even scream. Who the hell are you?" Tiffany spat, looking up at Claire. "What right do you have to barge into a private party and assault me? Let go. Security. Get this bitch out of here." Tiffany tried to grab Claire's hair with her free hand, but Claire sidestepped and shoved her, sending her sprawling unceremoniously on the floor. Claire reached into her coat, pulled out a leather wallet, and flipped it open, holding it inches from Tiffany's face. The gleaming gold seal of the Department of Justice, and the words, "Claire Vance, United States Attorney, Southern District of New York," were unmistakable. "I'm Claire Vance, U.S. Attorney for the SDNY, she said, her voice low and chilling. "The woman you just assaulted is my mother, the family of a federal prosecutor. Now, why don't you try raising that hand one more time?" The room was plunged into a stunned silence. The words, U.S. Attorney sent a wave of panic through the crowd. People began to back away. But Tiffany, after a moment of shock, let out a disbelieving sneer. In her world, the daughter-in-law of a housekeeper could not possibly be a U.S. attorney. U.S. attorney? She cackled, getting to her feet. "That's a good one. Did you buy that fake ID on Canal Street? The nerve of some people. Her daughter-in-law? The housekeeper's daughter-in-law is a federal prosecutor? That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. If a little punk like you is a U.S. attorney, then I'm the first lady." Tiffany, now convinced Claire was a fraud, grew even more arrogant. She pulled out her phone and theatrically pretended to dial 911. "I'm calling the cops right now." Impersonating a federal officer, assault. You're going to jail for a long time, sweetie. You have no idea who I am. Claire just looked at her with a humorless smile. Realizing conversation was pointless, she took out her own phone and hit a speed dial. The call was answered on the first ring. Her eyes, sharp as ice, never left Tiffany. "Chief," she said coldly into the phone. "Vance. I need units at the Grand Astoria Ballroom. Code 3. I have a suspect actively committing assault and interfering with a federal officer. Get here fast and bring cuffs. Understood?" Claire hung up, a chilling smile playing on her lips as she looked down at Tiffany. Tiffany's smugness finally began to fade, replaced by a flicker of dread, but the damage was done. For the slapped mother-in-law and the avenging daughter-in-law, the war had just begun. The automatic doors of the Grand Astoria lobby hissed open, and a dozen NYPD officers stormed in. Leading them was the precinct chief, sweating profusely and running so fast he didn't even notice his cap was on crooked. The ballroom descended into chaos at the sight of the police. Tiffany's friends shrank back into the corners, terrified. But Tiffany's face lit up. She was convinced they were her cavalry. "Chief, over here," she yelled, waving frantically. "What took you so long? Do you have any idea how much I pay in taxes? Arrest these 2 women immediately. This one," she pointed at Claire, "broke my arm." But the chief didn't even glance at her. He marched directly to Claire and snapped to attention, delivering a crisp, formal salute. "Ma'am," he boomed, still catching his breath. "Precinct Chief Miller. We responded to your call. Apologies for the delay. We have the scene secured." His powerful voice echoed through the ballroom. The sneer on Tiffany's face froze solid. The other guests stared, dumbfounded, their mouths hanging open. Martha could only blink, astounded by her daughter-in-law's authority. Claire gave a curt nod, her eyes cold. "Chief, your precinct's public safety management is a disgrace. A violent assault happens in broad daylight in a major hotel, and the perpetrator shows zero remorse. Secure the hotel's CCTV footage immediately. I want statements from every single witness." "Yes, ma'am. Right away, ma'am," the chief said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Is that the assailant?" He pointed at Tiffany. 2 officers immediately moved towards her. But Tiffany still couldn't accept reality. In her mind, a housekeeper's family and a U.S. attorney were 2 concepts that simply could not coexist. "Get your hands off me," she shrieked, batting the officer's hands away. "Are you crazy? Do you know who I am? Hey, Miller, are you on the take? You really believe this young bitch is the U.S. attorney? She's obviously some high-powered man's mistress, throwing her weight around. She's a con artist." The chief's face went pale. Calling the U.S. attorney for the SDNY a mistress was an act of career suicide. Claire let out a dry, mirthless laugh. "Your ignorance is about to become a very expensive legal lesson," she said, stepping closer. "Chief, what are you waiting for? Add resisting arrest and slander of a federal officer to the charges. Cuff her." The officers moved in again. This time, Tiffany threw herself to the floor, kicking and screaming like a child. Finally, 2 female officers had to lift her by her arms and legs and carry her out like a trussed-up animal. Even as she was dragged from the ballroom, her venomous shrieks echoed back. "You'll see. I'm calling my husband. I'll have all your jobs. I'll destroy you." With the commotion over, Claire went to Martha, who was still standing in a daze. Seeing the swollen bruise on her mother's cheek, Claire's eyes softened with emotion. She gently took off her own silk scarf and wrapped it around Martha's neck. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked softly, taking her hand. "I'm so sorry I was late." "Claire," Martha whispered, clutching her daughter-in-law's sleeve, "is this going to cause trouble for you? That woman's husband, he's a very rich and powerful man. What if he tries to hurt you?" Claire wrapped a supportive arm around her mother. "Mom, in this country, no one is above the law. Don't you worry. I can handle it. I'm not as fragile as you think." She took Martha to the hospital, but Tiffany's ignorant rampage was far from over. From the precinct interrogation room, Tiffany got her phone back and immediately called her husband, Richard Harding. She twisted the story, painting herself as the victim. "Richard, darling, you won't believe what happened," she sobbed into the phone. "That cleaning lady, Martha, brought her daughter-in-law to the reunion. And this horrible young woman, pretending to be a prosecutor, she attacked me. She broke my arm. And the police chief, he must be on her payroll. He arrested me." On the other end, Richard Harding's roar of fury was audible. The idea that his wife had been manhandled, and by a housekeeper's daughter-in-law no less, was a mortal wound to his ego. Without bothering to learn the facts, he immediately ordered retaliation. "What son of a bitch dared to touch my wife?" he bellowed. "You? Attorney? Don't make me laugh. These goddamn scammers are getting bold. Don't worry, honey. I'll teach them a lesson. I'm sending some guys over right now to tear their lives apart." That afternoon, 2 black windowless vans screeched to a halt in front of Leo Peterson's small contracting office. Burly men carrying crowbars and baseball bats piled out. Inside, Leo was looking over blueprints when he heard the commotion. Before he could even react, the glass front door shattered. The thugs stormed in, smashing everything in sight. Desks were overturned, computers were hurled to the floor. Leo tried to stop them, but he was hopelessly outnumbered. "Who are you people?" he shouted, grabbing one man's arm. "What are you doing?" "I'm calling the cops." The leader of the thugs shoved Leo back, sneering. "Go ahead, call them. The boss sent us. Your mother needs to learn to keep her mouth shut. You want to stay in business? You learn to grovel. Got it?" After reducing the office to rubble, the men left as quickly as they had appeared. Leo sat amidst the wreckage, clutching a bleeding arm. But that was only the beginning. When Martha returned home from the hospital, she nearly fainted at the sight of her front door. It was covered in red spray paint with messages like, "Watch your back, and you're dead." A small box sat on the doorstep, emitting a foul stench. "Oh my God! What is happening?" she sobbed, sinking to her knees. "I'm so scared." When Claire arrived home from work, the scene was one of pure terror. She saw the photos of her husband's destroyed office, the vile threats on the door, and her mother-in-law huddled under a blanket, trembling with fear. Seeing all this, Claire's expression became a mask of ice. The time for soft words was over. She went silently to her home office and locked the door. Her fingers, trembling slightly with rage, spun the dial of a hidden safe behind a bookshelf. Click. The heavy door swung open. From the very back, she pulled out a dusty manila folder. The label read, "Internal Investigation. Harding Construction. C.O. Richard Harding." It was a case she had pursued as a junior prosecutor, but had been forced to drop due to pressure from her superiors. Wiping the dust from the folder, a dangerous glint appeared in her eyes. "You wanted to solve this with thugs," she whispered to the empty room. "Fine. I'll show you how I solve things with the law. I'm going to show you just how terrifying a prosecutor can be when she decides to hunt." The next morning, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York moved with lightning speed. Claire summoned the heads of the white-collar and organized crime units. In the briefing room, with Richard Harding's photo on the screen, her orders were swift and brutal. "Effective immediately, we are opening a full-scale investigation into Richard Harding, Harding Construction, and his entire family," she announced, her voice like steel. "Charges include bribery of a public official, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit assault. This isn't just a corporate fraud case. I want you to tear them down to the studs, get warrants for all financial records, and have a grand jury subpoena ready for my signature by noon." The prosecutors scrambled, a sense of urgency filling the building. Moments later, the phone in Claire's office rang. It was the lead partner at the high-powered law firm representing Harding. "Claire, my dear," the lawyer said in a slick, familiar tone. "It's Bill. Why are we doing this? Mr. Harding says there's been a misunderstanding. If you make this go away quietly, he's prepared to be very generous. I hear your husband's business is struggling. We could steer a very large contract his way." It was the classic mix of bribery and threat. Claire laughed, a cold, empty sound. "Bill, are you trying to get yourself disbarred for witness tampering? I'm considering this an official attempt to bribe a federal officer, and I'm adding this recorded conversation to the case file. And tell your client this. Slapping my mother was easy. Paying for it with years in a federal prison will be much, much harder. She slammed the phone down without waiting for a reply. The war was on. But what Claire didn't yet know was that behind Richard Harding stood a formidable power within the Department of Justice itself, a power that even she might not be able to touch. A heavy atmosphere settled over the U.S. Attorney's office. Outside, dark clouds gathered, threatening a storm. Claire stared at a single sheet of paper on her desk. Stamped across it in bold red letters were two words: warrant denied. It was almost unheard of for a judge to deny a warrant in a case with such clear probable cause. Claire knew instantly this wasn't a legal judgment. It was a political hit. Just then, the secure line on her desk rang shrilly. The caller ID read, Marcus Thorne, Assistant Attorney General, Criminal Division, DOJ. Claire took a breath and picked up the receiver. Vance, she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. Thorne's arrogant voice came through the line. Claire, keeping busy, I see. I hear you're trying to take down a whole company without so much as a courtesy call to Maine Justice. That Richard Harding case, he's a good friend of the department. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Claire gripped her pen tightly. There's no misunderstanding, Marcus. We have evidence of tax evasion, bribery, and witness intimidation. This is a criminal matter, not a political one. It's not something you need to concern yourself with. A condescending sigh came from the other end. Claire, you still don't get how Washington works. When the DOJ starts taking down major employers, it hurts the economy. Besides, Mr. Harding has been very generous to our causes over the years. I'm telling you as a friend, drop it. That's an order. Claire shot up from her chair. Is it the DOJ's job to grant immunity to criminals? I will proceed with this investigation according to the law and my oath of office. I'm staking my career on it. Thorne's voice turned to ice. Your career? Fine. You want to go all the way? You're going to regret this. Bitterly. The line went dead. Before Claire could even put the phone down, her office door was thrown open, and several men in dark suits stormed in. They were from the DOJ's Office of the Inspector General. They bypassed all formalities, treating her not as a U.S. attorney, but as a criminal. The lead agent shoved a document in her face. OIG. U.S. Attorney Vance. You are under investigation for abuse of power and conducting a retaliatory investigation. As of this moment, you are suspended from all duties. Please surrender your credentials, office computer, and service cell phone. Retaliatory investigation? Claire asked, aghast. This is a legitimate corporate corruption case. Who ordered this? Was it Thorne? The agent just gestured to his men, who began to sweep everything off her desk into boxes. Her deputies tried to intervene, but were blocked at the door. In the chaos, Claire's eyes fell on a single file on the corner of her desk, a photo from the scene of a fatal hit-and-run involving Harding's former accountant. As the agents unhooked her PC, she deftly slipped the photo and a small memo into her jacket pocket. You will remain at your residence pending the outcome of this investigation, the agent said coldly. All contact with outside parties is prohibited. Please leave the premises. Claire was escorted from her own office like a common criminal. In the hallway, her subordinates looked down, ashamed and angry. She gave their shoulders a supportive squeeze and walked out of the building without looking back, the stares of her colleagues like daggers in her back. That same evening, at a Michelin-starred sushi restaurant in Midtown, the mood was celebratory. Marcus Thorne sat at the head of the table in a private room, with Richard and Tiffany Harding fawning over him, pouring expensive whiskey. Richard, ecstatic that the investigation had been quashed, beamed. Mr. Thorne, you are a miracle worker. Seeing that arrogant young woman put in her place, it's the best news I've had all year. I won't forget this. Thorne took a long sip of his drink. You should have been more careful, Richard. You don't go after a U.S. attorney's mother. Still, it was satisfying to knock Claire Vance off her high horse. She's finished. It's only a matter of time before she's disbarred. Tiffany, flushed with alcohol, clapped her hands. Bravo, Mr. Thorne. I knew she was bad news the moment I saw her. So, She's going to prison now? Oh, this is too good. I have to share this. She pulled out her phone and dialed Martha's number. At home, Martha was packing boxes, preparing to move to a safer place, when the phone rang. Seeing Tiffany's name, she almost didn't answer, but a fear for Claire made her pick it up. "Hello," she whispered. Tiffany put the call on speakerphone. "Martha, darling, it's me. Have you seen the news? Your precious daughter-in-law is about to be fired. They're investigating her for corruption. I think that means she's going to jail. What a shame. All because her mother-in-law couldn't learn her place. You've ruined her career." Martha sank to the floor, stunned. "Tiffany, what are you talking about?" "Claire, it was my fault. It was all my fault. Please, just leave my daughter-in-law alone. Too late for begging now, isn't it?" Tiffany sneered. "Should have gotten on your knees when I told you to. Bye-bye, Martha. Get ready for those prison visits." The call ended. Martha collapsed on the floor, sobbing, blaming herself for everything. As night fell, a heavy rain began to lash the city. Claire, still in the suit she was wearing when she was kicked out of her office, a baseball cap pulled low, was driving to a desolate intersection on the outskirts of Queens. It was the spot where Richard Harding's accountant, the one who managed his secret ledgers, had been killed in a mysterious hit-and-run. She got out of the car, letting the cold rain soak her. "This was no accident," she muttered, scanning the ground. "There has to be something. A tire track, a piece of a headlight, anything." She used her phone's flashlight to search the roadside, her body shivering from the cold. She believed this incident was the key to connecting Harding and Thorne. She spotted an old CCTV camera mounted on a nearby convenience store. A flicker of hope. She ran inside. "Excuse me," she said to the young clerk, flashing her now useless ID. "I'm with the U.S. Attorney's office. That camera outside, do you manage it? I need to see the footage from a week ago." The clerk scratched his head. "Oh, that? Some guys came by yesterday. Said they were from a security company. Doing an upgrade. They took the whole hard drive. Said it needed to be replaced." Claire's legs felt weak. They had already been here. They had destroyed the evidence. It felt like being trapped by an insurmountable wall of power. She walked out into the rain, defeated. Just then, her phone vibrated. A blocked number. "Hello," she answered, her voice weary. A man's voice, electronically disguised, came through the speaker. "Is this Claire Vance? I know what you're looking for. Harding's second set of books. The real proof. The recording of his conversations with Marcus Thorne. I have it." Claire's eyes shot open. It was a lifeline in a sea of despair. Who is this? Where is the evidence? "Midnight. Pier 45, by the old warehouses. Come alone. If you're followed, the deal is off." Click. The line went dead. It could be a trap. But right now, she had no other choice. She ran back to her car, her heart pounding. The counterattack was about to begin. The parking lot by the abandoned warehouses on the Hudson River was submerged in a thick, rainy darkness. Claire's car sloshed through a puddle and stopped in a far corner. She gripped the steering wheel, her eyes darting between her mirrors, watching for any sign of a tail. On the passenger seat lay a collapsible baton. At exactly midnight, a figure in a dark rain slicker emerged from the shadows, limping. The man looked around nervously before approaching her car. Claire rolled the window down just a crack. The man pulled back his hood, revealing a gaunt, rain-soaked face with a fresh cut on his lip. He looked vaguely familiar. "Are you U.S. Attorney Vance?" he asked, his voice shaking. Claire stared at him, and then recognition dawned. "You're Kevin Miller, aren't you? I was the prosecutor on your case 5 years ago, the bodega robbery." Kevin nodded, his eyes welling up with tears. "You remember. If it wasn't for you, I would have been rotting in prison for something I didn't do. I always wanted to repay you." It turned out Kevin was now Richard Harding's personal driver. He explained that Harding had promised to pay for his mother's life-saving surgery, but on the day of the operation, he'd reneged and beaten Kevin senseless instead. "That man is a monster," Kevin choked out, rain and tears mixing on his face. "My mother. She missed her window for the surgery. She died. Then I heard about what you did for your mother-in-law at that party, how you stood up to his wife. I knew then. You're the only one who can take them down. Kevin reached into his coat and pulled out a small object wrapped in plastic. It was a dashcam's memory card and a folded piece of paper. It's all in here, he whispered, pressing it into Claire's hand. The day Mrs. Harding hit your mother, Mr. Harding was in the car, talking to Marcus Thorne. It's all recorded. And this is the address of Harding's private lodge upstate. The combination to the safe is on there, too. That's where he keeps the real ledgers. Claire's hand trembled as she took the card. She could feel Kevin's desperation and his thirst for justice. She squeezed his hand. Thank you, Kevin. Your courage will not be in vain. I will get justice for your mother. I promise. Kevin nodded, then melted back into the darkness. Claire immediately plugged the memory card into her laptop. The arrogant voices of Richard Harding and Marcus Thorne filled the car. Recording playback. Harding. Mr. Thorne, my wife made a little mistake. Slapped some old cleaning lady around, and it turns out her daughter-in-law is a prosecutor. Can you believe the nerve? Thorne, don't worry about it. That Claire Vance. I've already sent the OIG to tie her hands. We'll make sure she's disbarred. Just have that stock transfer ready for me, like we discussed. Harding. Of course. You're a man of your word. The papers are all in the safe at my lodge. You can pick them up this weekend. Claire's fists clenched. This wasn't just a case of an arrogant bully. It was a conspiracy at the highest levels of power, a corrupt cartel crushing innocent people. Official channels were useless now. She picked up her phone and called an old law school friend, now a federal judge who signed off on emergency warrants. At 1 a.m., in a dingy 2-4-hour diner, Claire sat opposite Judge Peterson. He stared at the laptop screen, his face pale with shock. Claire, is this real, Marcus Thorne? If this gets out, it will shake the entire Department of Justice to its core. If I file a warrant request through normal channels, Thorne will hear about it and destroy the evidence. I need your help, Pete. This isn't personal revenge anymore. This is about showing that the law still means something. After a long moment, the judge nodded. He pulled out a document from his briefcase, signed it, and stamped it with his official seal. This is an emergency no-knock warrant for the property and a warrant for his arrest, he said, handing it to her. I'm putting my career on the line for you. Don't fail. Warrant in hand, Claire sent out a single group text to the 5 most loyal and trustworthy agents from her old unit, the ones who had been scattered by the OIG. Emergency assembly. Leo's office. Plain clothes. Total radio silence. At 3 a.m., in the ruins of her husband's office, her team gathered. They were the best, and they were furious about what had been done to their boss. On a dusty whiteboard, Claire drew a map of Harding's lodge. Our target is a private lodge in the Catskills, she said, her voice grim. There's a secret safe behind a wall in the wine cellar. It contains a ledger detailing bribes to politicians and officials. We go in fast and quiet, before Thorne's network even knows we're moving. One of her agents cracked his knuckles. We've been waiting for this call, boss. Let's go get that son of a bitch. They piled into the back of Leo's unmarked work van, a vehicle that couldn't be tracked, and headed north. As the van sped through the pre-dawn fog, Claire closed her eyes and pictured her mother's bruised face. Just a little longer, Mom. It's almost over. They arrived at the lodge just before dawn, scaling the fence and slipping past the sleeping security guards. Claire found the hidden staircase behind a bookshelf in the library, just as Kevin had described. The wine cellar was cold and damp. Tapping along the stone wall, she found a section that sounded hollow. She pressed a decorative brick, and with a low whir, a section of the wall rotated, revealing a massive steel safe. Taking a deep breath, she entered the combination Kevin had given her. Beep, 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 beep. Click. The heavy door swung open. Inside were stacks of cash and several leather-bound ledgers. She opened one. The first page listed Marcus Thorne's name, a date, and a bribe amount in the 6 figures. This was the bombshell. We have it, she said to her team. Bag everything. Leave nothing behind. As they left the lodge, the first rays of the morning sun were breaking through the clouds. The long night of rain was over. Claire pulled a crumpled invitation from her pocket. It was for a charity gala hosted by Tiffany Harding. benefiting the underprivileged. It was today, at 2 p.m. The venue, the Grand Astoria Hotel, the very place where her mother had been humiliated. A cold smile touched Claire's lips. Having fun getting ready for your party, Tiffany? I'm going to make sure that at your most glorious moment, you will be utterly and completely destroyed. You can count on it. The Grand Astoria Ballroom was even more dazzling than before, bathed in the afternoon sun. A large banner read, "A Gala of Giving, a Night for the Needy." The room was packed with politicians, socialites, and news reporters. Tiffany Harding, in a stunning angelic white gown, played the part of a benevolent saint, a massive pearl necklace replacing the one from the reunion. She was in the middle of a TV interview, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "There is truly no greater joy than giving back," she said with a practiced, saintly smile. "Our company, Harding Construction, will always be there for our less fortunate neighbors." "Oh, excuse me. I'm just so moved." Camera flashes erupted. Nearby, her husband, Richard Harding, was laughing and shaking hands with a congressman, utterly oblivious to the storm about to break. He believed Claire was finished, suspended and powerless. The master of ceremonies took the stage. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the highlight of our afternoon, a short film celebrating the incredible philanthropic journey of Mr. Richard Harding and the lovely Mrs. Tiffany Harding." As the lights dimmed, a giant screen lit up. Majestic music played over a slideshow of staged photos. Richard Harding handing out turkeys, Tiffany reading to children. Just as the audience was about to applaud, the audio crackled, and the screen went to static. Then, a new video appeared. It was shaky, filmed from inside a car. The faces of Richard Harding and Marcus Thorne were clear as day. The ballroom fell into a confused murmur. Video playback. Harding's voice boomed from the speakers. "So, Mr. Thorne, this is just a little something for your troubles. My wife, she took care of that business with the old cleaning lady. The nerve of her prosecutor daughter-in-law." Thorne's voice, smug and greedy. "Don't you worry. I've had Claire Vance suspended. She's dumb. Once she's disbarred, you'll transfer those subsidiary shares we talked about, right?" The shocking conversation echoed through the ballroom. The color drained from Tiffany's face, leaving it whiter than her dress. Richard dropped his champagne glass, which shattered on the floor. The room erupted in gasps and screams. "Turn it off!" Tiffany shrieked, scrambling towards the stage. "Turn it off right now!" Who did this? At that exact moment, the grand double doors at the entrance were thrown open with a dramatic bang. Every head turned. There stood Claire Vance. This was not the humbly dressed daughter-in-law. She was in a perfectly tailored dark blue suit, the gold badge of a federal prosecutor gleaming on her chest. Behind her stood her entire elite task force, wearing jackets that read U.S. Attorney's Office, SDNY. With the sharp click-clack of her heels, she walked down the center aisle, the crowd of stunned socialites parting before her like the Red Sea. Her eyes were locked on Richard and Tiffany on the stage. She ascended the steps and took the microphone from the stunned MC's hand. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice calm but carrying to every corner of the room. "I am Claire Vance, United States Attorney. As of this moment, I am commencing an official law enforcement action against Richard and Tiffany Harding." Richard, his face a mottled purple, stammered, You're insane. You're suspended. You have no authority here. Security, get her out of here." As hotel security moved forward, Claire's agents intercepted and neutralized them in seconds. Claire calmly unfolded a document from her pocket. It was a freshly issued arrest warrant. "Richard Harding," she announced, holding the warrant up for him to see. "You are under arrest for bribery of a public official, felony tax evasion, and conspiracy. Tiffany Harding, you are under arrest for aggravated assault, filing a false police report, and obstruction of justice." "Arrest!" Tiffany screamed, backing away. "Don't be ridiculous. My husband knows Marcus Thorne. Honey, call him. Call him now." Richard fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking, and dialed Thorne's number. It rang and rang, but there was no answer. Claire gave a pitying smile. He won't be picking up. Former Assistant Attorney General Thorne was taken into custody by the FBI an hour ago on bribery charges. The briefcase of money you gave him and the ledgers from your lodge made for quite a compelling case. At the word ledgers, Richard's legs gave out, and he collapsed, but Tiffany, still delusional, charged at Claire with her nails out like claws. "You bitch! Who do you think you are?" Before she could land a scratch, Claire effortlessly sidestepped, grabbed her arm, and spun her around. She brought the microphone to her lips, speaking directly into Tiffany's ear, her voice broadcast throughout the room. "The woman you called a cleaning lady," and slapped across the face. "She is my mother, more precious to me than my own life. You thought you could put a price on a person's worth. The law, however, will only know you by your inmate number. It's time to trade that couture gown for a prison jumpsuit." On Claire's signal, 2 female agents cuffed Tiffany. The cold click of the metal echoed in the silent room. Richard was also cuffed and hauled to his feet. Dozens of reporters, recovering from their shock, began snapping pictures, the flashbulbs illuminating the final, humiliating moments of the Hardings' reign. As she was dragged away, Tiffany shrieked, "You'll pay for this, Claire Vance. I'll get out. I'll kill you." Claire watched them go, then took a long, deep breath. In a quiet corner of the room, she saw her husband Leo, with his arm around her mother, Martha. Leo gave her a proud thumbs up. Martha was crying silently, her hands covering her mouth. Claire descended from the stage, walked past the reporters, and stopped in front of her mother, the powerful U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York stood before the former housekeeper and bowed her head slightly in a gesture of profound respect. "Mom," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I'm sorry it took so long. It's over now. No one will ever hurt you again." Martha pulled her into a tight hug. "Oh, Claire! I was so worried about you." "Thank you. Thank you, my dear daughter." Leo joined the hug, his own eyes red. "You were amazing, Claire. Absolutely amazing." The cameras captured the emotional reunion. Evil had been punished, justice had been served, and a family's love had proven stronger than any fortune. But the fight wasn't entirely over. A cornered rat will bite, and the Hardings' powerful allies were about to launch their final, desperate attack. The next morning, in the glass-walled conference room of a top-tier Manhattan law firm, a dozen expensive suits sat around a mahogany table. On a large screen was a frozen image of Tiffany Harding being arrested. "All right, listen up," the lead attorney said. "We can't win this in a courtroom. The evidence is overwhelming. So, we're not going to fight it in a courtroom. We're going to fight it in the court of public opinion. We're going to turn Claire Vance from a hero into a villain." Their strategy was viciously simple. Soon, a new video appeared online. It was the hotel's CCTV footage from the reunion, but it had been cleverly edited. The part where Tiffany slapped Martha was completely removed. All the video showed was Claire grabbing Tiffany's wrist, twisting her arm, and shoving her to the ground, played in slow motion. With the audio removed, Claire looked like a violent, unhinged thug. Within an hour, the internet exploded. Headlines screamed, "Shocking. Video. U.S. Attorney Claire Vance brutally assaults 60-year-old woman at reunion." The public, who had lauded Claire as a hero just a day before, turned on her with a vengeance. The next day, the front of the U.S. Attorney's office was a media circus. As Claire's official car tried to pull up, protesters threw eggs and coffee at the windows. "Just go to the back entrance, ma'am," her driver urged. "No," Claire said, her jaw set. "We go through the front. To run would be to admit guilt." When she stepped out, she was swarmed. "Miss Vance, did you assault an innocent woman? Are you using your office to settle a personal score?" A reporter shouted, shoving a microphone in her face. "The video was manipulated," Claire stated firmly. "I was defending my mother from an assault. The full truth will come out in court." But her words were drowned out by chants of, "Resign, resign." A water bottle hit her shoulder. Inside the building, things were no better. Pressured by the public outcry, the Department of Justice immediately suspended her again. This time, her entire team was reassigned. Meanwhile, Tiffany Harding checked into a luxury hospital suite, claiming she had suffered grievous injuries. Wearing a neck brace, she gave a tearful interview from her hospital bed. "I was so scared. she whimpered to the cameras. We had a small disagreement, and suddenly this prosecutor, she attacked me. My arm, the doctors say I have nerve damage. I have nightmares. A person with that much power shouldn't be allowed to just attack people. The interview went viral. A petition to have Claire Despard gained hundreds of thousands of signatures. She was trapped, a prisoner in her own home, with reporters camped outside. Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. Martha sat on the sofa, scrolling through the comments on her phone. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That whole family is trash. Her hands trembled. It's my fault, she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. It's all my fault. If I just die, maybe this will all end. Claire came out of her room and saw her mother's despair. She gently took the phone away. Mom, don't read that poison. It's all lies. I'm the U.S. attorney. I can handle this. Claire, please. Martha wept, grabbing her hand. Just apologize. Tell them what they want to hear. I can't stand to see you go through this. What if they send you to prison? Leo, her husband, looked tormented. His business was collapsing. Clients were pulling out of contracts left and right. Honey, maybe she's right. Just issue a statement. Let things cool down. But Claire shook her head. No. If I apologize, I'm admitting guilt. I would be saying what Tiffany did was okay. I would be letting them destroy you, Mom. My reputation is nothing compared to your honor. Just hold on. I will turn this around. That night, unable to sleep, Martha crept out into the living room. The peace of her family was shattered, all because of her. She went to her closet and pulled out the gray coat she had worn to the reunion. Reaching into the pocket, her fingers brushed against a cool, metallic object, the pen recorder. Her hands shaking, she fumbled with the small device. She didn't know how to use it, but she accidentally pressed the play button. Recorder playback. A hiss of static. Then, Tiffany, you did this on purpose, didn't you? You were jealous. Martha. No, I was just sitting here. Tiffany. How dare a cleaning lady like you? Get on your knees and beg. Smack. Tiffany. You need to learn your place. One more should do the trick. The raw, unedited truth. The slap, the insults, Claire's arrival, Tiffany's vitriolic slurs, calling her a fake and a con artist, it was all there. Tears streamed down Martha's face. She clutched the recorder to her chest, a new resolve hardening in her eyes. The meek, timid mother who had always hidden behind her children was gone. All right, she whispered, wiping her tears. If I started this, I will finish it. I will protect my daughter. The next morning, before anyone else was awake, Martha dressed, left a small note on the table, gone to the market, eat breakfast, and walked out the door. She wasn't going to the market. She was heading to the National Press Club. The mother's counterattack was about to begin. At 10 a.m., the main hall of the press club was buzzing. On the stage, where senators and CEOs usually sat, was Martha Peterson in a simple blouse, clutching an old handbag. Her son, Leo, stood protectively beside her. The press was in a frenzy. Mrs. Peterson, a reporter shouted, do you acknowledge that your daughter-in-law assaulted an innocent woman? Do you feel any responsibility for her violent actions? Martha took a deep, shaky breath and gripped the microphone. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were clear and steady. My daughter-in-law, she began, is not a thug. She is a daughter who saw her mother being beaten and did what any child would do. She protected her family. The room erupted in murmurs. Where's your proof? Someone yelled. Martha took the pen recorder from her pocket and pressed play. The raw, unfiltered audio of the entire incident filled the hall. The vicious insults, the sickening smack of the slap, Tiffany's threats, and finally, Claire's arrival and Tiffany's tirade against her. It was the entire unvarnished story. When it finished, the room was deathly silent. Did you hear that? Martha cried, tears streaming down her face. That is the truth. My daughter didn't abuse her power. She saved me from people who believe their money makes them better than everyone else. I may have been a cleaning lady my whole life, but I will not let them slander my Claire. She is a true prosecutor who fights for people like me. As she finished, the back doors opened. A group of people marched in, holding signs. It was Kevin Miller, Harding's former driver, along with a dozen small business owners who had been ruined by Harding Construction. Kevin took the microphone. Richard Harding is a monster who cheated me and let my mother die. The only person who ever helped me was Claire Vance. Please, stop this witch hunt. At that moment, the Harding's lawyers burst in, trying to stop the broadcast, but they were blocked by a wall of independent journalists and citizens. The press conference was being live-streamed to the entire nation. At home, Claire, who had dozed off from exhaustion, woke to the sight of her mother on every news channel. She saw a woman she didn't recognize, not a frail, timid victim, but a fierce warrior fighting for her child. Claire broke down, sobbing. On the news ticker at the bottom of the screen, the tide of public opinion was turning in real time. "We're sorry, Prosecutor Vance. A hero daughter. Arrest Tiffany Harding." Claire wiped her tears and stood up. Her mother had shown such courage, she couldn't hide anymore. She went to her closet and put on her formal uniform, her prosecutor's armor. Her eyes, once clouded with despair, now burned with renewed purpose. When she arrived at the courthouse, the protesters were gone, replaced by thousands of supporters holding candles and cheering her name. "Claire! Claire!" The crowd parted for her. She walked up the steps, and inside, her colleagues, who had been avoiding her, lined the lobby and burst into applause. A senior official ran up to her, holding a document. "U.S. Attorney Vance," he said, sweating. "Your suspension has been lifted. The Attorney General has approved a special task force to be put under your command to handle the Harding case." The establishment, fearing a public relations disaster, had caved. "Get my team," Claire commanded, her voice ringing with authority. "Assemble in the main conference room. Now." A short while later, she stood before her reunited task force. On the whiteboard were the photos of Richard Harding, Tiffany Harding, and Marcus Thorne. She drew a thick, red X through each one. "All right," she said, "the counter-offensive begins now. We will pursue maximum sentences on all counts. No plea bargains, no deals. They made my mother cry. We will make them pay with everything they have. Let's get to work." Months later, on a crisp autumn day, the federal courtroom was packed for the sentencing. Richard Harding, Tiffany Harding, and Marcus Thorne sat in the defendant's box, clad in drab prison jumpsuits. Their power and arrogance had evaporated, leaving only hollow-eyed despair. In the front row, Martha and Leo held hands, their eyes fixed on the judge. The judge cleared his throat and read the verdict. "This court finds the defendant, Richard Harding, guilty of bribery and felony fraud. He is hereby sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The defendant, Marcus Thorne, is found guilty of accepting bribes and abuse of power. He is sentenced to 10 years in federal prison and will forfeit $50 million in assets." A wave of applause swept the courtroom. Richard Harding sagged in his seat, a broken man. The judge then turned his gaze to Tiffany. The defendant, Tiffany Harding, used her wealth and status not only to violently assault a vulnerable citizen, but to then maliciously orchestrate a public campaign to frame her victim and the prosecutor who sought to bring her to justice. This is an egregious offense against the very fabric of our society. You are hereby sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, effective immediately. 5 years? Tiffany shrieked, leaping to her feet. "You can't do this to me. I'm Tiffany Harding. This is all a setup. That bitch Claire Vance framed me." She lunged forward, but court marshals restrained her. She was dragged from the courtroom, kicking and screaming curses at Claire. Her glamorous facade finally shattered, revealing the ugly, pathetic criminal beneath. Claire watched her go, her expression unreadable. Then she turned and met her mother's eyes. Martha was crying, but these were tears of relief and vindication. Claire gave her a small, gentle smile. "It's really over, Mom." Outside the courthouse, they were met with a sea of cameras and cheers. "Miss Vance!" a reporter called out. "Some say this was a personal vendetta. What do you have to say?" Claire stopped, looked directly into the cameras, and spoke. Her mother's hand held firmly in hers. This wasn't revenge. This was a restoration of justice. The law should not be a weapon for the powerful, but a shield for the weak. I hope this case serves as a reminder that there are some things money and influence can never buy, integrity, truth, and the love that holds a family together. That evening, the smell of steak and roasted potatoes filled the Peterson home. The TV news was recounting Claire's triumph, but Martha turned it off. "Enough of that," she said, smiling. "When we're eating, we're a family, not a news story." She cut a perfect piece of steak and placed it on Claire's plate. Leo raised his glass of soda. "A toast to Mom, the bravest woman I know, and to my wife, the toughest prosecutor in America." They all laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Outside, the dazzling lights of New York City glittered, but no light shone as brightly as the one in their small, love-filled dining room. The great evil had not been defeated by legal statutes or powerful titles. It had been defeated by the simple, unbreakable love of a family that refused to let one of their own be broken. And as the savory steam rose from the dinner table, it was clear that this was the only victory that had ever truly mattered.